Welcome back to Only Sans, folks. I've got a new idea, a little idea that I've been thinking about for the past few months. Something to continue the sort of 80s horror theme after we did the horror of the 1980s. And it's kind of a little game, I guess. Dave McRae's joining me here. I'm sure you're all familiar with Dave. Dave, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on. I think this is a really good idea. It's a really good idea. You did a tremendous job with the 80 shows that you did, which were amazing. And I think it's kind of a cool natural progression of that in some ways, but spices it up. So I'm glad to be part of it.
So essentially what we're doing here is we're calling this Room 666. I gave Dave a list of the 200 movies that we all talked about and voted on in the horror of the 80s series that I did over, I think it was around about 2 to 3 months. Dave has picked 5 movies which are considered to be reasonably popular among the horror community. And he's going to try and convince me that they're actually not that good. He's going to bring his arguments. I'll bring counter arguments. And if he makes a solid enough case, I'll banish it to Room 666 forever. Never to return. Never to return.
And by the way, I should add that this is official. I mean, that movie will no longer exist on any shelves, any streaming services. It really will be gone. So, the power we have on this, or the power that Darren has on this channel is unmatched. So just be warned, folks.
So this is the first time that we're doing this. It's kind of a pilot. It's a test. It's an idea. I want to make sure it works. And so this is why we're pre-recording it. If it works, I'm then going to kind of roll it out into a live show. I've already got some other guests lined up who want to challenge us on this as well. But Dave, you picked 5 films, and I was surprised at the 5 that you picked. I think it might ruffle a few feathers.
I think it will. And so a list of 200 movies, and there were a lot on there that I had seen, and there were a lot that I hadn't seen. And so there were some on there that I genuinely didn't like or don't like. But I decided to compile a list of movies that also, were films that maybe I don't hate, but I recognize that are extremely popular and maybe more popular to other people than me. So I decided to take some and see if I can make a case for making a case to banish them, if you know what I mean. I think that makes sense.
You just want to wind people up. That's what you want to do.
So not everything on this, not every movie on my list I hate, but maybe I don't like them as much as some other people. I'll explain it when we go through it. But anyway, you get the idea. You get the idea.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to introduce your first film, and it is The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
Yes. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. So you let me know when the clock starts.
That's right. You have 5 minutes to build a case for me to banish this film to Room 666. Okay. All right, your time starts now.
Okay, well, first of all, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, one of the most famous slasher horror movies of all time. Iconic, incredibly influential, released on October 11th, 1974, same date as Black Christmas in Canada. Shameless plug. But one of the most iconic horror films of all time. Gritty, raw, ironic that it's called Massacre, and there's really no blood in the movie at all. But the intensity, the grittiness of it, the low budgetness of it is iconic to this day, incredibly influential, and it's genuinely a scary film. And I can only imagine watching it in 1974, how scary it would be. So when the sequel came along, Tobe Hooper was done doing Poltergeist and Life Force and all this, and he wants to do a sequel to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Oh my God! I mean, what do you expect? It's going to be intense. A sequel is going to be intense. This is like one of the dumbest horror comedies. The tonal shift is completely different. It's like I'm watching, it's like The Burbs being a sequel to some like intense horror movie or something. I mean, it's not that it's not cool and fun on its own, but as a sequel to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, for me, it feels weird. So it's the tonal whiplash. It takes one of the grittiest, rawest films ever made and turns it into a hyper cartoonish carnival ride. It doesn't feel like the same universe. It feels like a parody of the same universe. Number two, chainsaw comedy kills the horror. The Sawyers go from terrifying backwoods cannibals to Saturday morning Looney Tunes cartoon villains. I just didn't connect to it. It's not what I wanted from a sequel. And number three, Dennis Hopper's I'm in a different movie performance. Hopper feels like a cheap parody of himself. From a completely separate film, and that film was somehow on like cocaine or something. I mean, it's fine on its own merits, I guess, if it was its own thing. But I don't even I don't even really feel a connection to the original film. It feels like a parody of itself, like this is the scary movie version of Scream. And maybe that's hyperbolic for some, maybe that's going to the extreme, but the contrast is huge. And because the original Texas Chainsaw is so beloved, so iconic, so influential, I just feel that this movie becomes irrelevant and sets the franchise up for largely, where it went. And I mean, we can say a lot about Halloween 2 and how Halloween 2 doesn't compare to the original, and I agree. But at least it didn't become the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. And that's all I have. So for me, I think we should banish Texas Chainsaw 2 because I don't think people even really need it when we're talking about the universe. So that's my argument. Those are my arguments.
Okay. Nicely done. Nicely put in about 3.5 minutes. I think look, I'll be honest. I've never been a huge fan of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. However, I do appreciate that there are a lot of fans out there and people do genuinely love this film. And some fans see it as one of the better or even the best entry in the franchise, which I find difficult to believe. However, the tonal whiplash thing that you talk about, I get the impression that he wasn't trying to remake the original and it's like he almost, I guess, flipped the formula. The first film was sort of a lot of sort of gritty realism in there, and then the sequels almost like I would say like almost like Romero did it or somebody like that, because it's kind of a satirical take this time round, digging into that sort of 80s consumerism, excess, media exploitation, that kind of thing. It feels like it's not I get when you say it's almost like a parody as well, but it doesn't feel like it's a parody of the universe. It feels like a more like a parody of the 80s. And I think that does make it quite bold. But I still struggle with it hugely. I struggle with it. The Sawyers becoming comedic, I kind of get that. I really struggle with that in this film. It is so larger than life. I think it's a difficult watch. I think it's so amplified. Louder violence, bigger personalities, all this kind of neon lit vibe that's going on there. And I do really struggle with it. And then Dennis Hopper in a different movie. Yeah, but then everybody else in this movie's kind of larger than life, I guess. However, this film does give me a fucking headache every time I watch it. Absolutely gives me. I find it difficult to get through for the sheer amount of screaming and continual shouting through this film. A great double feature for you would be this movie and the Goonies. And the Goonies together, yeah. I do own this as a 4K. I did buy it recently, and that's not because I particularly like the film, but I do like everything around it. I like the fact that Toby Hooper came back for this, and I like the fact that he does carry on with the story of the Sawyers. However, I find the extras, the fact that Tom Savini's on board with this, the commentaries that are on the Blu-ray and everything, more interesting than I do the film, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. And I agree with you that it is something that should be banished to room 666. So I'm going to put it in there.
Yes, 1 for 1, ladies and gentlemen, 1 for 1. I just want to add to something you said, because it is true. And I need to say this because some people might say, well, Dave, but he did it on purpose. Oh, of course he did. I mean, I don't in any world think that Hooper was trying to make a serious movie and ended up making the Texas Chainsaw 2. But I think that's part of my problem, is that he's in that first movie, you establish the rules of the universe and you establish a very serious film. I mean, it's a very serious film.
Yeah.
So the contrast, the 180 feels like you're breaking your own rules. I mean, it's not that it wasn't done on purpose, but it feels like, imagine if Scary Movie, now I'm going to the extreme to make a point, but imagine if Scary Movie was the sequel to Scream.
Yeah.
I mean, you would almost go, this doesn't feel like, what are we? And no, we made it that way on purpose. Well, sure, but but it feels like you're going against the rules of the universe that you established.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas if the original Texas Chainsaw had been maybe a bit goofy and a bit sort of satirical, but then he just amped it up for Texas 2, well, then it feels like a natural progression.
Yeah.
That first movie, whether you like it or not, very scary, very serious, very, and 2 is just like, I'm watching Scary Movie. I'm like, what are we?
It is.
And so that's why for me, that whiplash just doesn't work. I mean, I was ready to watch another serious expansion of that universe, not a Disney-fied Looney Tunes version. But anyway,
but I get what he was trying to do. I do get what he was trying to do, sure. and I appreciate that this movie has a fan base out there.
It does.
Okay, next film. Your next film that you are going to attempt to banish to room 666 is, and this is a tough one. Okay, we're going to talk Dream Warriors. Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Okay, Dave, 5 minutes to build your case for the Dream Warriors. You don't have to use the full 5 minutes, but, it's just to keep things in check. Starts
Here we go.
Now.
Okay. So, again, let me say that I actually do like this movie. I do like this movie. I don't hate this movie at all, but I chose this film for a couple of reasons. Number one, because it is considered the fan favorite. When you ask most Elm Street fans, what is your favorite Elm Street? They inevitably say Dream Warriors. And number two, I chose it because on a rewatch that I did a couple of years ago with you and Frank on The Slaughtered Lamb, I watched one movie a week. I revisited and I was watching all the films. I realized that, I still like this movie, but it doesn't hold up as well as I remember it holding up. And so I thought it would be a fun one to choose to see and challenge myself to see if I could banish it or get it banished. So let's start. So let me see. Number one of the reasons why is this is the beginning of stand-up comic Freddy. As you guys know, I love Elm Street 1 and 2 because one of the reasons why I like Elm Street 1 and 2 is because of the dark, gritty, scary, mean Freddy. And this is the beginning, not total transition, but the beginning of MTV Freddy, where he becomes more of that in part 4. This is the movie where he begins where the overly comedic Freddy begins. The darker, mysterious monster from the first two films starts to fade away. Number 2, great premise, but the idea of gifted dream warriors. Although the idea of gifted dream warriors and lucid dreaming is fantastic, on rewatch, the pacing and some of the effects don't hold up to me. And the story loses the raw dread that made the original especially so powerful. Number 3, the overexposure kills the myth, the mystery, and the mystique. Freddy is on screen far too much and explained in this movie too much, which reduces the mystery. Now, obviously, naturally, as you build sequels out, which is one of the issues I have with part 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, of these films and these franchises, is that the more that you go on, inevitably you have to open things up and you lose the mystique. And although Dream Warriors is beloved, and I think it is beloved mostly because of that Dream Warrior, lucid dreaming, fighting back. It's cool. It is cool. There's no doubt about it. But the Elm Street Freddy nightmare vibe for me begins to lose its punch, and it's scary in Elm Street 3. And then, of course, by the time we get to 4, he's putting on shades on the beach and he's, welcome to Wonderland, Alice. I think that was 4, right? I think that was 4. But so as iconic as Welcome to Primetime Bitch is, and it is iconic, I do like this movie. I do, of course. Who doesn't? It is the beginning of that transition. And I often wonder, where would Elm Street be? Where would Freddy be if they had kept going with very scary Freddy? Maybe there's an argument to be made that the franchise would not have been successful because part 2, although financially successful, was panned by critics. And part 3, you could make the argument that got things back on track. And so I do understand that. But I'm going to go out on a limb. It might not be a very, supportive limb. But I'm going to say we need to ban Elm Street 3 because it was the beginning. It was the beginning of where, if it wasn't for Elm Street 3, we may not have Freddy's Dead. And who the hell needs Freddy's Dead? But anyway, it's the beginning of it. It's the inception. It's the nucleus of that comedic Freddy. And I can't help but wonder where we would be if they had continued down the other trajectory. So Elm Street 3, I like you. I do, but you don't hold up as well as I remember. So ban Room 666. That's my argument.
That was about 4 minutes. That was good.
Amazing. I'm keeping it under, isn't it?
I agree with you on some of the points here. I agree with you that it doesn't hold up as well as it used to do for a number of reasons. For the visual effects, I don't think look as great these days. And, as you said, it is that midway point between him being, really scary Freddy to being a complete cartoon, I guess, which is sort of part 4 onwards. However, he's still like a sadistic demon in this film. He does really enjoy killing the kids in this movie, and that really shows. And I kind of like it for that. And his personality here, I think, actually deepens him a little bit rather than diluting him. I think it's really skirting on the edges of being, that kind of ridiculousness that we get in part 4 and 5 onwards. But it doesn't quite go there. Now, there are some bits of this. I mean, I think Nancy was shortchanged with this film. I think her death scene could have been so much better in this. And what we get is something that's actually quite pathetic, I think. I also think, as a premise, I think it does pay off. I think it's probably one of the most imaginative Elm Street films that we have, I think, because the rest of them just go completely absurd. But this, I think, is a good balance between scary Freddy in the first 2 movies and then ridiculous Freddy that we get later on. We're on the cusp of really introducing him as the buffoon that he comes later on.
A loser he becomes.
I remember waiting for this film to come out and queuing outside the the video shop, waiting for it to open and waiting to run in there, grab it off the shelf and be like, one of the first people to see it on VHS. And it still holds a place in my heart for that. I also am really well aware of how beloved this movie is.
It is. That's why I chose it.
I think that the first 3 movies are the best in the franchise, and I would be happy if we just had the first 3 rather than everything else that came afterwards.
Good point.
I don't think that it's the best of the 3. I think it goes 1, 2, and 3. I'm with you. I think 2 is fantastic. I really do like 2. And it's grown on me over the years, and the look of Freddy is just terrifying in that film. But I can't put Dream Warriors into Room 666. I think there would be chaos if we did that.
That's it. Darren is off my Christmas
and I
list.
don't believe you really want it to go in there.
You know what? I was gonna buy you a Maserati, but you're off the list now. Let's just fuck that shit.
So no, I'm gonna refuse on this one.
And that's fair. That's fair. I tried, but I wanted to pick something. Like I wanted to challenge you. You know what I mean? Like I wanted to see if I could. make it, because I think there is a case to be made, but with Elm Street 3, because it's so beloved, like you said, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
Yeah. I think I think it holds a special place in a lot of horror fans' hearts. And yeah, this was peak 80s slasher was this. And I just, I think Chuck Russell did a great job with the direction on it. It's a shame that some of the effects don't hold up as well. Like the marionette scene is such a great idea, but it does look really ropey these days. It really does.
Yeah. Had the rest of the films 4, 5, and 6 had kept the balance of 3 in terms of Freddy, then I mean, who knows where the series might have gone? But yeah.
Okay, we move on to your third film, and
another hot one.
Oh my God! If this one, if Elm Street 3 didn't get people tearing their eyeballs out, then maybe this one will.
Yep.
Jason Lives.
Ooh, people are watching, going, "What the hell is McCrae doing? What is going on?"
Okay. So you have 5 minutes starting from now to convince me to banish Jason Lives to hell. To room 666, not to hell.
Room 666. All right.
Go.
I just lost 3 seconds. God damn it. No, it's all right. It's all right. So like Elm Street 3, I do like this movie. I do. But again, when I was looking at the list, I'm like, I got to pick movies that, sometimes can be hot takes, right? You know what I mean? And the reason I picked this movie, like Elm Street 3, is not because I don't like this movie. I do, but I don't love it or like it as much as most Friday fans do. So again, like Elm Street 3, when you ask most Friday fans, what's your favorite Friday movie, they're inevitably going to say, generally speaking, one of 2 movies, 4 or 6. And 6 seems to be the Elm Street 3 of the franchise. And for me, I don't dislike it, but here are some of the reasons why I'm like, maybe we should banish it. Maybe we don't need it. Number 1, Jason becomes full-on supernatural. The franchise officially abandons the grounded backwoods killer vibe and jumps headfirst into resurrected zombie territory. So now the stakes are lowered because you're like, well, he's now literally all supernatural. You can make an argument in 2 and 3 and 4. There's a supernatural something about him. How's this guy? But it's without question now. We see he's resurrected by lightning. He comes up, he's there. And it's just, you know what I mean? It's just kind of, okay, all right. The meta humor. I'm not a big fan of the meta humor. I'm not a big fan of the winking at the audience. Listen, I've often said, look, the Friday the 13th franchise is B-movie schlocky nonsense. All the movies are B-movie schlocky nonsense. But the first 4 films do take themselves as seriously as they can take themselves. But again, when you get to 6, 7, 8, in a franchise, you're like, what do we do? And so they do this kind of winking at the, even Elm Street 3 didn't do that, but now they're kind of winking at the audience with the American Express card, Never Leave, Home Without It, and all these other sort of kind of nods and kind of fun meta kind of stuff where I'm just like, it kind of takes me out of it. This is me personally. It's the kind of Friday fan I am. It kind of, I don't hate the movie. It just kind of takes me out of it. I'm like, it kind of takes me out of it. So it kills any kind of tension. The self-awareness is charming for some fans, but it pulls me out of the horror and makes it feel more at moments like a parody of earlier films. And that's where I'm kind of like, it's not like Texas 2, but it feels kind of like we know what we are. We know what we're doing. Maybe that's a strength for you. What else do you do with Jason at this point? I get it, but I'm like, I'm not really feeling it. Number 3, Camp Crystal Lake stops feeling dangerous. I don't feel that earlier claustrophobic vibe and intensity and danger that I felt in part 1 or part 2, even 3 and 4. Let me see here. With the humor, the polished aesthetic, and the tongue-in-cheek tone, the camp tends to lose its atmosphere a bit. I don't feel the same atmosphere. Look, there's one iconic shot I absolutely love, which is Jason standing on top of the turned-over RV. Really cool, really iconic. And the RV sequence is actually pretty good. But again, overall, I'm like, it kind of feels, again, you could make the argument that it breathed new life into the franchise, and if it wasn't for Friday 6, we wouldn't have Friday 7 or 8, which actually might not be a bad thing. But anyway, I don't hate the movie. I feel very similar about 6 like I do Elm Street 3. For me, if the movie didn't exist, I wouldn't lose sleep over it, because when I watch The Friday movies, I tend to only watch 1 through 4 anyway. So that's why I think it should be banished.
Very good arguments. Just under 4 minutes it took you to do that. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Well. For me, that's pretty good.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. I like the way your arguments are kind of short and to the point, and we're kind of not using all the time, which is good. It's good. Yes. So Jason Lives. How do I feel about Jason Lives? How do I feel about your arguments? I think first up, I think the supernatural angle saved the franchise. It didn't ruin it at all. I think it saved it. And if you think about it, you had more Friday the 13th movies that came after this film than you did that came before it. I think you've got 6 or 7 that came after this film. Well, that's not necessarily a good thing, but the franchise was running out of steam at this point.
Fair enough.
And so part 6, they'd run out of like grounded ideas completely. And so turning Jason into this sort of resurrected myth, I thought was genius at the time. I think it gave the franchise new identity and revitalized it completely. And it's the birth of the sort of zombie Jason that a lot of fans really like. Yeah, exactly. The meta humor as well is I don't necessarily find it like parody. I think it's sort of
borderline.
Yeah, it's self-awareness, but done right, I think. And this was way before Scream, before meta horror had become a trend. And I don't think we realized, even when Scream came out, that actually Jason Lives was doing this 20 years before Scream was. Was it 20 years? 10 years before Scream was.
10 years before.
Yeah, around about 10 years. And so I think Jason Lives was ahead of its time when it came out. And crucially, I also think that I don't think it ever undermines Jason's threat. I don't personally feel that way. I still think he's pretty, he's a beast in this film, and there are some great kills, particularly when he snaps the sheriff in two. I think that's a tremendous kill. Wow. Yeah. I think the humor kind of enhances the pacing of the film. Jason's still like brutal and he's fast in this film, and I think, as I said before, I still think he's pretty scary throughout. You remember, I saw this when I was probably around about 13 or 14 years old. This film introduced me to rock music. This film introduced me to Alice Cooper. I went straight out and bought this soundtrack straight away because he's back, the man behind the mask. Teenage Frankenstein. It was amazing, and it was a real kind of turning point in my teens. Was learning about heavy rock music and the Friday the 13th franchise, because I think I may have seen, did I see this Friday the 13th film before the others? I can't remember. It also pays homage to some absolute classic movies, Frankenstein. It doesn't feel grimy in any way. It feels kind of gothic at the start. You've got this resurrection of Jason with the lightning strike and everything. Foggy woods, graveyards, stormy nights, all that kind of thing. And a real atmosphere that kind of is similar but different to the atmosphere that you get in the original. I know it's a bit kind of clean and shiny, and it's got that sort of MTV look to it, but it was just progressing. It was moving through the 80s with this kind of different vibe. And I always find that there's a real, it feels like more accomplished than some of the other. It feels better made than some of the other Friday the 13th movies.
Yeah.
On the negative side of things, you can argue that it moves too much into that kind of supernatural territory. The tongue-in-cheek stuff, maybe on one or two things, like when the kids are, we're in big trouble, dude, and all that kind of stuff, just gets a little bit too heavy-handed. Some of the kills and deaths feel like the balance of humor and gore and everything feels a little bit off, like when he rams that guy into the tree in the face and all that kind of stuff. Maybe don't quite work. However,
I just want to add,
go on.
the two different actors, because at first you have a bit of a chunky Jason, and then
yes,
what's his face? I was gonna say
CJ Graham.
CJ Graham.
Heather Graham.
I had Graham in my head. CJ Graham. And something I forgot to mention, but this is a side thing. I wasn't a big fan of the tool belt and the gloves. I will say that.
Yeah. A little Batman, wasn't it? Yeah. But also, I think it gave the franchise with it's the first film that had a proper soundtrack, and I think it gave the franchise broader appeal. So I can't put this into room 666.
What would have been really funny is if you had gone, anyways, having said all that, you're fucking right. This thing is going into room 666.
We have to save Jason Lives. We can't get rid of it.
And I bet you there are people watching go, Dave, why didn't you pick Friday 5? Or why didn't you pick Friday 8? Well, what fun would that be? The comment section is going to be on fire because I picked these movies. If I had picked Friday 5 or Friday 8, everyone would be like, yeah, I agree. Well, maybe not 5, because 5 is beginning to have sort of a resurgence.
But
if I'd picked 8, you all would be like, yep, I agree. And I'm thinking, I saw it on the list and I was like, I can't pick 8. I gotta pick. So I'm like, I'm going. Hey, listen, man, you go big or you go home. And I failed, but at least I tried, folks. At least I tried. I'm 1 for 2.
What would be interesting is what our viewers feel in the comments down below. Would you have banished Jason Lives to room 666? I don't know. It does. There are people there that it kind of grates on. So maybe there would be people that agree with you down there. Okay. Let's just reset the counter. Bring up the next film, which is Mr. Collins. Brandon Collins isn't going to be happy with this.
No, he's not.
Terror Train. You have 5 minutes to convince me to banish Terror Train to room 666.
Probably going to need about 8 seconds, but okay, we're going. Okay, so Terror Train is one of the Jamie Lee Curtis, David Copperfield is in it. I mean, holy crap! Not that, but it's just kind of a fun little anecdote. But here's the thing. So this was 1980, I believe, right? 1980, yeah. Jamie Lee Curtis, still in that horror kind of thing. And this is the kind of movie. Have you ever watched, a movie that you feel like you should like, but you've given it multiple watches and you just can't get behind it? You just can't, for whatever reason, like this movie. Terror Train is one of those movies for me. And here are 3 reasons why this movie sucks. I just can't. I want to like it. I love anyways, let me just read this. Keep myself on track, or I'm going to go 900 minutes. Number 1, it moves at a snail's pace. My God, it's slow. It's so slow. And it's only like 90 minutes long, but it feels like it's 90 years long. I think it's 90 minutes anyway. The film is painfully slow with long stretches where nothing of consequence happens. Like it just feels so slow to me. Number 2, a great setting. I love the idea. I love, one of my favorite Gene Hackman movies is Narrow Margin. It all takes place on a train, highly underrated. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Early 90s. It's fantastic. I love movies that take place on, murder mysteries and stuff that take place on trains or planes or boats or whatever, because you're isolated, claustrophobic, you can't immediately call for help. Love that kind of stuff. Love the premise, but it never really pays off. It's slow and it's boring. A moving train is an incredible horror location, but the movie barely uses it to create tension. Instead of claustrophobic suspense, we get endless wandering through identical looking cars that all bleed together. It's just like, and when a kill happens every now and then, but it's just, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. Number 3, a slog to get through. Again, very much, even the kills and reveals feel muted. The film has some atmosphere, but it never becomes engaging, energetic, or scary to me. By the time it hits the finale, it feels like you've watched 3 hours instead of 90 minutes. You know what I mean? And so, it's not one of the worst horror movies I've ever seen, but I think it's the premise, it's the location, it's the idea. Slasher movie on a train. Oh, yeah. If I was a studio executive and somebody walked in and said, slasher movie on a train, I'm like, I'm listening. You know what I mean? Like, hello. Okay. What is this? Well, I'm like, it doesn't. The premise sounds so engaging, and yet the execution just never meets the expectations of that premise. And so I've tried to watch Terror Train multiple times, but I'm thinking, no, there's got to be something wrong with me. There's got to be something wrong with me. I watch it. I just can't get. I'm just not. I'm not. It needs to be banished. It needs to be banished. Those are my arguments.
Just under 3.5 minutes there for your argument. Very good, sir. That was interesting. Terror Train is one of those films that, you know, is was a sort of staple in the slasher boom in the early 80s. It isn't trying to be, I don't think it's trying to be like, you know, a kill every 5 minutes type movie. And you know, the slower pace, I think, is actually really purposeful because of the setting that they're on. You know, it's very just building paranoia. There's that kind of identity swapping that's going on. The one thing about this I am always puzzled about is what the hell happens at the start for this kid to flip. I can never identify what happens in that opening scene when that prank is played or whatever. It's kind of weird. I don't know what it is. Brandon did explain it to me one time, but I think it's shot so poorly that I never. It's
already in the comments now before this movie's before this video's even been posted or finished. He's already in the comments right now talking about this. He's
a fan. I know he's a fan. He's a fan.
Yeah.
But there is that, you know, there's all that identity swapping, which kind of adds to the tension, I guess. There's misdirection in there. And also, it almost feels like the sort of deliberate pacing feels like it's trying to be a bit of more of a sort of almost like an Agatha Christie type film, a murder mystery, rather than an out-and-out slasher film. I think it has a different rhythm to a lot of other slasher films, but I don't think it's necessarily a weak one. People always focus on the train and everything and what they don't do. You know, there's no derailments, and well, there should have been maybe, but.
Let me say that my issue is certainly not with, I mean, you know me, I love a slow burn, right? I love slow burns. And I'm all for that. Yeah. I just, maybe the characters are not interesting to me. Like I love, you know, the Agatha Christie, what's that? Murder on the Orient Express. Like I love all that kind of stuff. And but the characters are so interesting, and there's a mystery every few months, and they're trying to piece things together and go along. And this, like you can have stretches of nothing happening and still the film be fascinating and engaging. Terror Train for me just wasn't that.
Yeah. But, you know, it does allow them for, you know, the train environment does, you know, you've got that, as you were saying before, you know, there's nowhere to run. There's all these confined corridors, the killers swapping identities inside, you know, what's effectively just a fairly limited cast. And so the train works well, I think, as like almost like a narrative device. You know what I mean? It drives a lot of these things along. It was never supposed to be about action or anything like that. It's more about claustrophobia and anonymity and things, I think. And then I think the kills, I agree, are fairly. Did you say muted?
Muted.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
I think I said, did I say muted?
I do agree with that. Yeah. No, I think you did say muted. Yeah. This came really early in the slasher boom. And, you know, was very close to things like not long after Halloween, and a lot of the slashers then weren't really pushing things in terms of over the top gore. That kind of came more in sort of 1981, I think. Although you had Friday the 13th that year. In fact, this came out shortly after Friday the 13th, but the filmmakers wouldn't have been aware of Friday the 13th and how much they probably needed to push boundaries when this was released. When this was made. And so, but the sort of restraint does give it a strangely, I guess, a bit of an eerie feel throughout. But I've got to agree with you. It's a fucking boring film, isn't it? It is.
Yes!
It is.
Yes!
It is.
I love how you set me up. You're going up like this, and then you're like, but no, No, baby, no.
It doesn't quite do it at all. It's not a strong slasher film whatsoever. I've tried to look for some positives in this, and I just really struggle. I just really struggle with this film every time I watch it. And, you know, Jamie Lee Curtis is fairly wasted in this film as well. Again, just taken on just as a name because of her success on Halloween, and probably, I think, was The Fog out before this, maybe?
Fog was 80. It might have been out.
Yeah. Anyway, I think it's one of the ones that I do go back to now and again just to check that it's not as great as I thought it was. But
I think there's something wrong with me, but no.
Yeah, no. But I agree with you. I think it needs to go in room 666. I don't think it's a great movie at all.
Yes, 2 for 2. No. Excuse me, 2 and 2.
2 and 2.
Not 2 for 2. 2 and 2. I agree. It's the premise is great, and I love the slow burn. I want all that. I don't want to kill every 5 minutes. I think it's just boring. It's boring, and the characters are not interesting enough, and it's just
It is boring. Yeah. It is boring.
Yeah. Sorry, Brandon.
Sorry, Brandon. I'm going to reset the counter. The next one, I was really surprised you picked this one. Really surprised. Although there are a lot of fans of this franchise that probably haven't got caught up in its resurgence over the last 10, 15 years.
True.
So let's see how we get on with Halloween 3. You have.
I kind of already know that I'm probably going to end up two and three here at the end of all this. But anyway.
Well, let's see. I don't know. You may be able to convince me. Okay. Let's see. Your 5 minutes starts now.
So Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, right? Comes out in 1982, and it's the one without Michael Myers. And listen, again, I don't hate this movie, but I don't love it or like it as much as a lot of people do. It's had a resurgence over the last 15, 20 years, probably thanks to the internet too and all that. And people seem to really glom onto it and like it. They like that it's different and it's the one that stands out. All the reasons that we know. But for me, I think where it falls short for me, and the reason why I feel okay with banishing it, is because for me, it's well, let me read my notes first. I don't want to go off on a tangent. Let me read my notes first. And then I can expand on it. Number one, calling it Halloween 3, of course, it was the setup for failure. Initially, no Michael Myers, no Haddonfield, no connective tissue. It confused and alienated audiences for decades. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that is an issue now, but certainly at the time, that was part of the issue. The film may have done much better had it just been called Season of the Witch, right? You know what I mean? And so that obviously was an issue from the very beginning. Number two, better as a standalone. Like I said, worse as a Halloween film. If this were simply called Season of the Witch, I guess I just kind of combined my two there. Let me go number three, a big idea. This is kind of the big issue I have with it. It's a big idea, love the idea, with not a big enough budget. And I think the film swings for an apocalyptic nationwide mass murder conspiracy, but the resources at that time clearly weren't there. The idea was too ambitious for the production budget and for its time. Instead of feeling global and catastrophic, it feels like the entire apocalypse is happening in one small California town. Because even when they show New York, Chicago, Phoenix, Arizona, no, they're just places around LA. Because, you know what I mean? And some wonderful shots, some great stuff. But I've often said I love the idea of Season of the Witch, but for me, it doesn't quite meet the ambition. I don't feel the scale like I think the intention was. And so, I guess I'm sort of in that I could take it or leave it. Like it's fine. It's a fine early 80s, but I'm not like, whoa, Halloween 3. I'm just like, nah, I couldn't care less if it ever existed, really. And that's not to say that the movie's bad. It's not a bad movie. It's not like Terror Train where I'm sitting there going, it's not like that. It's just, I'm one of those fans. I'm one of those Halloween fans. Maybe you're not, but I'm one of those Halloween fans where the resurgence of Halloween 3 hasn't quite captivated me in the same ways that it has for some fans. Whereas the resurgence for me maybe has made me look at the film from a maybe more like, oh, yeah, it's not as bad as I once thought it was when I was a kid in the 80s, thinking, whoa, what the fuck, where's Michael Myers? But it still hasn't won me over in the same ways that it has many Halloween fans. And I think that's why I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Not as bad as I thought it was when I was 6, right?
Yeah.
But even still, I'm like, I think it's fine. Like, it's fine. But if it was Banished, I couldn't care less. Like, it's not like I'm like, oh, I want. So that's kind of how I feel about it. I don't know if those are strong enough arguments. Probably not. But for me, I look at it from the perspective of good early 80s, kind of movie, but as a Halloween movie, as part of the series, I'm just like, yeah, let's get this thing out of here. It doesn't, it's not. I think part of the love for it is in retrospect, and it comes from not everybody, but some people like to be edgy. Oh, you know what? This is kind of, I like that it's different. I like that it's, I like this. It's different. It's, I don't know. Would people love it today if it didn't have that retrospect, resurgence, look back, kind of think piece articles? It's not that bad, kind of. I don't know, like that connection to Halloween, even though it has nothing to do with Michael Myers, kind of helps people look at it and reframe it in a different way. Had it been called Season of the Witch, would it have done well? And would people look at it from a different perspective all these years later? There's a lot of moving components with Season of the Witch, and why sociologically, psychologically, people might like it now as opposed to 40 years ago. But anyway, I can see the time is almost up. For me, the resurgence hasn't hit me the same way as it has other fans. Like it, don't love it, wouldn't mind if it was Banished.
Well done. That was interesting. That was really interesting. There was a lot of disappointment for me as a kid. I saw Halloween at a very young age. I think the movie was probably 2 years old when I first saw it, probably in about 1980, 81. And so learning straight after that there was a Halloween 2 available for me was just incredible, because it left you on such a cliffhanger. I didn't know there was a Halloween 2, and I go in the video shop and it's there. And I'm like, oh my God, I can continue this, 9 years old or whatever I was back then. And then we were on holiday somewhere, and I saw a bus shelter poster about a year later for Halloween 3.
Amazing poster.
Yeah. The night no one comes home.
Oh, great.
And I was like, hold on, what does this mean? What does this mean? My parents saw it. I think it was my dad saw it. And I asked him, what was going on? What was it? And he said, Michael Myers wasn't in it, which isn't technically true, but
actually.
And so I was like, it took me a while to actually pull myself together and watch it. And when I actually did, I was just kind of like, I was disappointed. Everybody was disappointed. But that disappointment didn't come from the fact the film wasn't good. It was a misunderstanding, I think. Mm-hmm. And it was a failure on the part of the studio and the filmmakers. They should have made people more aware that this was something completely different. Now, they sort of subtly do with the tagline, "The night no one comes home," because that can mean Michael's not here. But also it can mean everybody's been wiped out, That's true. And so I don't think the title was a problem at all. I think it was audience expectation. And, you don't think Season of the Witch? No, I don't. I think it was right to put it on. We all know that Carpenter and Hill had intended to do the rest of the franchise as anthologies anyway. It just didn't work out that way. Yeah. However, I don't think this film would have gotten the love that it does have now, all these years later, if it wasn't under the Halloween banner. I think the Halloween banner, I think you're right, has allowed it to have a life of its own. And that's a really, really good thing. Is it a cult classic? Yeah, I think it is. And I think it's better because of it being under that banner. When you watch it, it feels like a Halloween film. It looks like a Halloween film. Same creative team, same holiday spirit, same Carpenter DNA in there, and DOP and everything. As a standalone film, outside of this franchise, I think it would have just vanished, and we wouldn't have looked at it again. But I think as part of Halloween, I think it's now become amongst the fan base quite legendary. And you know, it's the kind of boldest swing in the franchise. And for me, I actually think it works. I actually really think it works. I think the budget limitations actually help the film. The whole conspiracy and everything feels sort of handmade, if you like. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. And the small town focus makes it more personal. A bit like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where that's centered around, you know, a small town, a small group of people, if you like. And then this sort of mix of sci-fi, witchcraft, corporate evil works because it's all contained, I think. And then that ending, one of the bleakest endings in 80s horror for sure. It has its downsides, like the fact that Michael isn't in there. It's, you know, as you say, its identity when it came out was really messy. What is this? You know, does it belong under that banner? It probably didn't at the time, but I think that it's benefited from being under there over the years. I'm a huge fan of Halloween 3.
I know, and I knew it. No matter, I mean, barring some sort of really, you know, I don't know, I could connect it to some horrible person or something. I don't think I was going to win this argument.
No, well, I mean, like, you know, it's. I think it's a great idea. I also think, you know, I would agree with you in that some of the characters are probably a little bit flaky and underwritten. But I think that, you know, given how misunderstood it was to begin with, I think it's earned its right. And that's not to be banished to room 666.
Damn it! Yeah, no, look, I think you make some great points, and I will just add to that and say I think when I say budgetary reasons, because there's going to be somebody going, Dave wants Marvel movies. It's like no. I just mean that I think what would have, like, you bring up Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which is one of my favorite, and I know it is for you too.
Yeah,
one of my favorite horror movies of all time, the 1978 remake, and one of the most iconic endings. I mean, I love it, and I think because that takes place in a city, it does center around a group of people, but because it takes place in a city, I don't know what the budget was on that. Probably more. I think maybe for me, had there been, I love the small town idea, but I didn't really feel like when they went to try and communicate the scope of what was happening, I didn't feel what they were trying to communicate. And I think maybe had they, you know, maybe if, I don't know, if there was a little more paid attention to that scope. I don't mean you got to spend millions of dollars showing city streets collapsing. And I don't mean that, but I just mean that maybe a little more of the scale of the stakes of what was at stake. In terms of that, just a little bit, early 80s version of that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not expecting World War Z. So
no, I know what you mean. We just get those few moments where it flashes to different states in the US and to show you what's going on. And
because it was low budget, they weren't really in different states. They were all in California. You know what I mean? They would, you know what I mean? And so, and I totally get it. I totally understand, but maybe, you know, it would have been worth showing a child in a park with the Empire State Building behind them, or maybe it would have been just that psychologically through that cinematic language, showing that, oh, this is, like you say, Phoenix, Arizona, but it's just kids running through a field. Yeah. And you say it's, you know, New York or where, you know, wherever, but it's just a neighborhood street. Like, and I get it. I would have done the same thing if I didn't have the money to do it. So but it's just the reality of low budget filmmaking at that time, and maybe where they allocated the funds, right? We couldn't send a second unit to, you know, New York to do that. We couldn't. I get it. I totally understand it.
Yeah.
But if I'm looking at it from that perspective, it's like, I wanted to feel, which is one of the reasons why I think now a Season of the Witch, you know, remaking that now and going in that direction for the franchise would be really interesting, really fat. That's a whole other thing. I'm not going to go off on that, but I just mean that might be interesting because now you have the access to the resources to kind of make it feel kind of, you know, whereas in Invasion of the Body Snatchers, you get the city, right? You get people, the public walking along the street. You get like all those people, you really kind of feel it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And whereas here, I don't quite feel what they're selling a little bit. But I think that's always been kind of, but anyways, you make some great points. And again, why did you choose this movie, Dave? Because I wanted this to be interesting. I wanted it to be fun. If I just choose a movie everybody hates, what fun isn't that?
5 shit movies, then there's no competition whatsoever, is there?
Exactly.
No, this was a lot of fun. Thank you for joining me for this. I'm going to do another one, folks, that's pre-recorded. Again, see how it works. See if you guys like it. And then maybe we'll have a go at pushing it out live and doing it that way as well. But as a first go, I thought it went okay. I thought it went pretty well. It was good. And
I kept within time. Look at that. 9 seconds left on my last one. I kept within my time. I was very cognizant of that, Davey. I don't want to make Darren edit for 9 years.
No. But I think the one thing you have done is you've probably successfully riled up a lot of people in the comments with some of your takes there.
My father is looking down, smiling.
No, this was really good. And thanks again for joining me.
No problem. Thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun. Really appreciate it.
Great. I'll be back very soon, folks, with another one of these, Room 666. I've got Barry from Wolfman's Got Nards. He's going to join me in the next week or so to do another episode of this. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you soon.
All right. Cheers.